Okay, so here we have, now look at how pretty these card backs are with this background that I used to use all the time. It's perfect. I had to pull that one out for that because look at that. Okay, so just a quick, this is Tarot of the Old Path, a handbook of female wisdom. The instruction book is by Howard Rodway, but the artist is Sylvia Gainsford. Now, one of the interesting things I did read about this deck, and it does point out here, is that there was a group of Wiccans, I want to say, but I don't want to say that. I'm almost positive they were witches, but I want to say that they were Wiccans. So Margaret Adler, Louise Bourne, Patricia Crowther, Janet and Stuart Farrar, Asselin Lester, Pauline Newberry, and Kim Tracy. And apparently these are fairly up there people, and they were consultants for this, all of them were consultants for this particular deck. Meaning, symbolisms, verse, anything to do with ritual, astrological, and elemental influences, and such like that, so that this deck would be remain authentic to Tarot of the Old Path. So that's there. There is also a companion book to this deck called Tarot of the Old Path Instruction Book. From what I understand, it doesn't do much more in terms of meaning than the Little White Book does, but it does go into all the symbolism because, as I said, there is animal and plant and elemental lore and stuff built into these particular cards. So here we have the backing of them. They are good weight. It's a little bit thicker maybe than a Llewellyn card, and it does have a copyright which I can't make out who it is. It's 1990 is the copyright on there, but it's not the artist. Probably the production. It's not Rodway either, so I'm not sure who that copyright is. But it's there, but it's fairly very microscopic, which is good. This I think is beautiful. It really is. And so let me see if there's anything else on here that I want to. Now it does show the Little White Book, so it goes in the sort of that little introduction about the artist, and then it goes into the meanings, and there is very little given here. We have obviously the name of the card. We have, I'm assuming, because this is Louise Bourne, so this is one of these consultants. So it has the name of who, I guess, provided the text for that particular, yeah, so here's Sylvia Gainsford. So it has who gave the text or helped to form that card, so to speak, there. And then it gives the divinatory meaning and the reverse meaning, and it's quite small. But again, from what I understand, these are pretty Rider-Waite Smith, so you shouldn't have too much difficulty with it. And there is a larger book that you can get for the actual symbolisms of the plants and things such as that. Then after that, there is information about the Celtic cross with a picture. And then these are just other decks. So it's a Little White Book. Again, most of these meanings you can probably get from just your basic understanding of the cards, and then hope that you know some plant lore. Unlike me. So I'll be saying, putting him up and saying, what is this plant? Somebody tell me. Or I'll email Melissa, what is the plant in this card, please? So here we have, let me just show you. So the major arcana, so we see how we have this sort of branch, little border along them all, which I think is quite wonderful. They're all different kind of colors and configurations in the major arcana. In the minor arcana, they actually stay with the suit. I can give you more of that elemental aspect of the suit, which I quite like. Let me see if you can see this fine. Okay, so here we have the Fool. And I quite like this because it's interesting. We have the Fool over here kind of going on his journey. But then here we have a woman who, here's a baby putting his hand in the fire, and the woman's like, oh my goodness, you know, no, don't put your hand in the fire. So it has sort of an adventurous quest, but then we do have a little bit of the shadow aspect of the card too, and sort of making a bad choice and not being very smart. That sort of new, because there's different aspects to that sort of new beginning, and then naiveness can be a wonderful thing, but it can also get you in trouble. So you kind of have the shadow aspect in both of within this card. So I like that. I also do like how if you watch where the path's going, it splits off into choices, kind of showing the different choices that is going to be coming. And then look it up here on the actual border thing. Look. It's a butterfly coming out of a chrysalis. I hope that's focusing because that is really cool. And there's it looks like, I think that's a pheasant, and obviously I think in my brain goldenrod, but I am not a plant person. I think I might have to get a plant book. So I'm sure that has specific meanings. The little white books do not go into that kind of stuff whatsoever. Now, I love this card because this to me is very much from Brian. I got the book, oh, it was right over there. This is The Way of Weird, and this was one of the first books that I read, coming from, you know, obviously being raised quite religiously Christian based. This was one of the first books that I read that really broadened my idea of the weird of the world. So this is The Way of Weird by Brian Bates. In fact, I think I shall start to reread this. This is a new copy. My copy had gotten eaten to death, and then I was able to find a new copy of it, thankfully. But this is, to me, an amazing book. And in this book, a Christian scribe he has to go into the pagan Anglo-Saxon forests. And this is when Christianity was just starting to come to the continent. And he finds himself in a world that he just doesn't know what to do with, and he meets Wolf, a sorcerer and a mystic and a pagan, and all to do with magical lore of plants and runes and life force and fate, and sort of his experience of the coming together of those two mindsets. It's quite fascinating. It's a wonderful book, and I highly recommend it. But my rambling point being that this to me is just Wolf. I mean, that's who that is. So for this alone, I love this deck just for this particular card, because look at that. And we have a unicorn back here. We have some standing stones. We have the water element signs up here. He's got his runes that he needs. We have the sword. We have the cup. We have the fire. I'm assuming maybe the runes stand for the pentacles, or perhaps the earth sense that the cup is sitting on. I just love it. I love this to death. Thank you, Melissa, just for this card, because look at this. I'm going to take a picture like that for Instagram. Love it. So there we go. Then here we have the High Priestess. I mean, look. We have elemental things over her head. Look at the animals. Her hands on the deer. We have rabbits. We have a unicorn. We have butterflies and birds, cat, squirrel. Look like maybe a dragonfly. Here we have a snake of transformation going up the side. We have the moon, obviously, on either side of it. We even have down here a spider web. Quilfin will like that, I think. And then we have some kind of a plant. I may have to try to track down a used copy of the book just for all those symbologies there. But look at that. That's a beautiful High Priestess card. So I just, yeah, very, very loving that one. And then this one, I saw this one when I saw the star card, because I mean, look, messing these all up over here. Look at the Empress. We don't have just a pregnant, but she's also nurturing and caring for a baby at her breast. We still have the Venus. Look at it. It's a little teeny bird, little robin redbreast. We have the hair. We do have the definite sense of abundance. We have the wheat sheaths and the apples. We have cherries here, which I'm sure all these things. We have a lotus. We have a bluebirds flying. We have the deer. I mean, this is just a stunning Empress card. I think it's an absolutely stunning Empress card. Look at that. Here we have the Emperor. I love this. Again, more flower lore. We have the same sense of abundance, but we have his regalness and the armor like we talked about in the card comparison. We have the ram horns. We have the Ankh on the back. We have the eagle across the thing, but then we also have him connected with nature. So we get his more regal political power base, but we also get the sense of his connection with nature, and we have things all is right with the world. This is a fantastic Emperor card. Okay, so here we have the High Priest, which is also known as the Hierophant. And so here we have a very regal looking man, very, gives you that kind of feeling of the traditional popish, but he has more robes. We have an elephant here, a bull, it looks to be an eagle here holding some kind of plant. Actually, as I was, Isabel, don't, honey. Come on, no. I had to talk to my boss for a little while on the phone in between, and I looked on Amazon, was able to find a used copy of the book for like 50 cents. Plus shipping, so yeah. Because there's so many symbols that, again, I've heard that from what I read, there's not a lot just in terms of meaning that's extra, but for all the details of the plants and the animals and things like that, that's quite interesting to me. So anyways, here we have obviously the High Priest. Then we have the Lover's card. So here we have, again, quite traditional to the Rider-Waite. We have the angel here with the elemental sign on its chest, which I think is quite interesting. Now this does say, I'm kind of flipping through the book as we go, the little booklet, and this says it is dedicated to romantic novelist Barbara Cartland by the artist Sylvia Gainsford. For the full story, see the Tarot of the Old Path instruction book. So apparently there's a story behind that, but this is dedicated to Barbara Cartland. So we obviously have lots of plants going here. We have a tree with fruit on it, different kinds of fruit, lemons I can see, looks like grapes and peaches and apples. I don't know, there's all kinds of fruit on the tree, cherries even. And then we have what looks to be like bluebells and ferns, things going on. So I know all that stuff is there for a particular reason. It's not random. Now, I quite like this card. Now, again, this art style isn't 100% mine. It's a very type that I would normally be drawn to. However, look at this. Look at these horses. They're like the 4 elements. So the chariot, instead of the two, that you're kind of combating with the two, sometimes it's the black and the white. We have the chariot renamed to Mastery, and we have it with all 4 of the elements. We have the fire, we have earth. Look at earth's, has on the ends of its braided hair are like wheat sheaths. We have blue one with, here it has pentacle on his forehead. Look at that. Here we have a moon and a star one, and then we have a lighter color even here with water dripping off. So here we have fire. So here we have water, and I would assume this is going to be swords, and then we have, or not even that. So here we have water and air and earth and fire. How amazing is that? I think that's an amazing card. I just think that's fantastic. Here we have strength, and she is sitting on top of the lion. Not my favorite strength card ever, but it's quite beautiful. We have the infinity sign. We have the sort of healing two snakes that you see. So this is a strength, which is 8. So 8 is strength. I guess justice will be 11. So again, not my favorite ever strength, but quite beautiful and workable. Look at the wise one. So here we have the wise one, which was the hermit. And look, it's like winter out, and he's sheltering a flame and water. And obviously we kind of have the wand feel here. He's got a book in his hand. Look at the little bunny rabbit here. I just think this is a fantastic hermit card, wise man card, whatever you want to call it. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Here we have the Wheel of Fortune, which again is quite beautiful, despite there being a jester down here, although I kind of get that a little bit more. Look at the snake. I hope you can see this well. There's a snake, the Omnivorous, something like that, where you have the snake eating its tail here, and then inside here, look, we have sort of this sleeping woman, and she has a wheat sheath. Her hand is over a skull. We have a fish here. We have an owl. We have sort of a hunt happening here, harvest going on. We have both the peasant and the royalty that we see in many of the Wheel of Fortune contexts, is kind of to show that it affects both all classes of people, and nobody is immune to the Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, this is to me is a beautiful, and look, she's even my color. There is no color to that woman, much like me. So I just think that's amazing. Here we have Justice as 11, and we have it as a man, which I think is quite interesting. I would be curious to see, and he's quite a royal looking Justice. For what I would consider more of a pagan deck. He definitely looks to be much more of the judicial system style, which that to me is kind of interesting, although we do have courts going on here, especially when we get into the, so it's not that it's pagan as in out in the woods pagan, it's more just the ideologies. But we do have the scales here, the key at the waist, which is quite lovely, holding the wand. So really, and look, it's got a dandelion. Anything that has a dandelion in it is instantly okay. We have what looks almost like a protective swan, male swan maybe, black swan, over and above it, which I think is quite wonderful and probably stands for something. From what I understand, all these things, kind of really are there for a purpose. So I love that. Again, this is my favorite. I've never really, I don't know if I have any Justice cards with a man as Justice, but it works. So here would be, at least thus far, would be my least favorite card. I love the card in terms of the scenery, the lotus blossoms, that kind of stuff I love. Let's see why they call him. So the lone man is a pause in activity, the changing situation, changing style of life. Yeah, so it has the same, it's the same, they haven't changed the meaning of it. They have just called it the lone man. And he does look very meditative. He's very contemplative here. Really, I like everything about this card except for the fact that he's a jester. I don't know. I just don't know. Yeah, the raven up here. But, one card so far out of all these, so I'm not going to complain too much. I showed you the death card, but look at this one up close. This is called the Close. And it's about change. It talks about the end of emotional relationships, clearing out the old to make way for the new, all the things that we talked about. Reincarnation. We have a heron here. We have a beautiful owl. We have the traditional scythe and figure of death that kind of goes into shadow all the way straight down, which is interesting, and I would be willing to bet that's a death head moth. I just think it's beautiful. Love it. Here they have changed temperance to the guide. The meaning seems to have stayed the same. Keywords they're giving are like moderation, temperance, self-control, compatibility, that kind of thing. It's very interesting. We have some sort of Egyptian people back here, sort of gods that are watching down, and we definitely have the angel of temperance with the vessels going back and forth, but then down here we have, I wonder if these are the same. No, he's got different color hair, so I wonder if they were the same as the lovers, but they don't appear to be the same people. So this one I actually would be interested to see what if the guidebook adds to any of this, what's going on in this scene. Here we have temptation instead of the devil card. And so this really, I think, does go quite well with other decks that I have, where, you know, we have these sort of two people together. We have a fox here, what looks to be a fox. We have like a lightning strike going on here. We have the snake. But we have that sense of languidness, to me, is what I'm kind of picking up here, in that sense that, you know, going off into the woods and being part of our wild side and part of our sensual side, there's nothing wrong with that, but the temptation is to stay there, and so that becomes the problem. You have to know when it's, you know, time to step out from that space. So I think that's quite great. Here we have the Tower, which is quite interesting. Seems kind of Sphinx-like. We get a little more, there was some Egyptian, seems like, at least with this woman, definitely looks to be, or goddess, I'm sure, looks to be an Egyptian goddess. But we definitely have, it looks almost like a Sphinx there. But this is obviously the Tower. Again, the names or the meanings behind it seem to be the exact same, you know, typical Rider-Waite Smith, so not difficult. We have the rain going down. We have the lightning strike that you need for the Tower. Things are on fire. We don't have a lot of stuff that's going to be left, so it seems to be more along the lines of clearing things out so that you can start fresh. And then we have a very large toad. Here we have the Star card, which I talked about. I really like this because it has all the aspects of the traditional card. It also has the guidance aspect that we found in the Steampunk Tarot, so I quite like that. She's actually using shells for the vessels, which I like. And we even have an observatory back here for looking at the stars. I quite like the Star card. This was the card that I had seen before Melissa had messaged me about this. Here we have, instead of the moon, we have illusion, and I'm doing the moon card right now. So it talks about there being an illusory situation, but it does, you know, it does talk about how psychic powers being developed, imagination, solitude, but then there can also be the sense of entrapment. So there's a lot of things that this can tap into, and it seems to be giving you access to all those different aspects. I love this sort of goddess, you know, sort of star goddess up here, and there is like water running from her fingers into there, which is quite a beautiful image. We have a weeping willow tree here. We have a woman who has got in the position of what I understand is kind of like drawing down the moon from the High Priestess card in the Druidcraft. We have a man who's not looking too happy over here. We do have the lobster, which we see in a lot of the traditional moon cards. And we have the face reflecting, but it's not really her face. It's kind of, she has a teardrop coming out of her face. So we get both aspects of the moon card quite beautifully. Then we have the sun. We cannot get away from suns or faces inside of suns. But what can you do? We got happy people, you know, it's the sun. We got the phoenix there, which is quite wonderful. We have the signs of the zodiac. We have, obviously, it's a fire sign, it's the sun. So we have that going on. We have they're in stone, like a Stonehenge type thing. So that's wonderful. And then here we have a karma card instead of the world. I think this also is quite amazing. Not instead of the world. Instead of judgment. The world's next. Which I quite like. I'm not overly fond of the traditional judgment with the angel blowing the horn and people kind of being called up to judgment. That's not, you know, my favorite card look. So I do like that they've changed this, and this talks about the meanings for this they're giving is reaping what you sow, the result of past actions, a matter of conscience, having another chance, kind of owning up to what has gone on in the past and having a new start. So how wonderful. Look at this. We have, I hope you can see these, because you have, again, you've got some gods up here, it seems like, looking down. But we have sort of love and loss, and we have reaching down and helping this person coming up out of somebody who has died. We have a baby. We have a soul coming back into and being reborn. I mean, there's so much going on in this card to work with that I think is quite amazing. And then we have the world card. So here we have a beautiful, obviously, woman with a crescent moon over her forehead. Lots of symbology going on here. We have swords. We have the pentacles, cups, and wands with the flame. We have a pentagram here. I'm not sure. This looks to be as a fire symbol. Again, another pentagram here. We also have a triangle with a dot in the middle. That I'm not sure what that symbolizes. I'm sure somebody will be able to tell me. But it's quite a beautiful world card. We've got the stars around her, and then the stars almost as a cloak, and she's kind of, you can see the world down here and the sheaves of wheat. It's quite beautiful. I'm really, really impressed with the Major Arcana, minus the Jester Hangman, but other than that, I just think these are fantastic. I'm quite loving them. Okay, I'm gonna try to go through these a little bit quicker. But here we have the 4 suits, and you can see that the rods for wands are red for fire, the cauldrons for cups are blue for water, the swords are yellow and they're for obviously air, and the pentacles are green for earth. So I quite love that. There's just such a sweet old style. I just think they're quite beautiful. These, like I said, the suit cards are more simple than the Major Arcana was, and they have, again, the same little border here on all of them, but there is much more of a straight white background behind the images. And from what I understand, these are pretty Rider-Waite Smith, except for there again are the added plants and some animal type lore. So here we have the wands. I love this. He's on stilts. I used to be pretty good on stilts. I'm just saying. 3 of rods. 4 of rods. 5 of rods. There are, you know, a number of gestures that I'm going to have to try to get over. The 6 of rods. The 7 of rods. Some Vikings going on. Look at the 8 of rods. We have like flying brooms. You know how they're usually moving, have that sort of movement forward, and here we have flying brooms, which is awesome. I quite like this. Look at her. The 9 of rods. The 10 of rods. He's trying to get it all on his back. The page of rods quite looks like a page. So here we have the quartz. The Knight of rods looks quite fierce. The beautiful Queen of rods. And the King of rods. So quite a traditional looking court. Here we have the cauldrons. The 2 of cauldrons, very blue overtones. The 3 of cauldrons. The 4 of cauldrons. That's quite interesting. I think it's lovely though. I like that there's a lot of red-headed people here. The 5 of cauldrons. Look, he's even like, look, pay attention. There's stuff to see. There's still things to, you know, pull you out of your funk. Turn around. I love it. The 6 of cauldrons. The 7 of cauldrons. That's quite beautiful. The 8 of cauldrons. Definitely looks like he's making off with some cauldrons. The 9 of cauldrons. The 10 of cauldrons. You get that family sense. And then again, we have a traditional page looking page of cauldrons. Ooh, I like him. The Knight of cauldrons. The Queen of cauldrons. And the King. Okay, then we have the swords. So here we have the Ace of Swords. I quite like the the crescent moon like that. And let's see, I quite like that. But you know I'm a swords person. So this is a yellow toned suit. 2 of Swords. Look, the 3 of Swords. I love this. We actually have that sense of loss. Yeah, I think that's quite beautiful. The 4 of Swords. Look at that. That's interesting. The 5 of Swords. I know I said I was going to go quick. I quite like this as well. The 6 of Swords. But look at all the hands, like Ladies of the Lake hands coming out with the swords. Yeah. 7 of Swords. The 8 of Swords. Look at that. I think that's beautiful. Look at the 9 of Swords. So bound. See, we don't... look at that. Bound and covering the face, like from the hands being bound. I think that's quite interesting. The 10 of Swords. Here we have the Page of Swords. The Knight of Swords, looking quite fierce. The Queen of Swords. She looks a little snobbish. Quite often the Queens of Swords do look rather cold, which I don't relate to because I relate to the Queen of Swords and I don't feel like that. And the King of Swords, I quite like him. Then here we have the Ace of Pentacles. More jesters. Melissa, what are you doing to me? But I do quite like him. He makes more sense to be a the 2 of Pentacles makes more sense to be a jester-ish. And he at least is just green and yellow than a full-on jester of the Hanged Man. Somebody just admit that that's correct or agree with me. 3 of Pentacles. The 4 of Pentacles. See, these to me would be quite easy for somebody to pick up and read with just a base understanding of the Rider-Waite-Smith. The 5 of Pentacles. The 6 of Pentacles. The 7 of Pentacles. He's been working quite hard. The 8 of Pentacles. The 9 of Pentacles. Look at that. The 10 of Pentacles. And then we have our court. I quite love her. I know that that's probably supposed to be a guy, but I like it. Looks like a girl to me. Page of Pentacles. Knight, very monkish hair. Ooh, look at her. Queen of Pentacles. I quite like her. And the King of Pentacles. So there we have it. I think that this is quite beautiful. Again, the style is not one I generally would be attracted to because it's quite an old, feel to the style, almost a dated feel to it. But I quite am really feeling quite connected to this particular deck. And quite like the look of it. Let's just give it a quick shuffle here. I'm taking way longer on this than I intended to because I just really like it. Shuffles beautifully. It's a little bit of a thicker stock or feel to the stock than, say, a Llewellyn deck like Tarot of the Hidden Realms. It feels a little sturdier than that, but it still shuffles quite beautifully. So yeah. I just want you to be able to see a couple of them. So we obviously have the elements showing up in the little, see how it has a very blue. This deck does actually look at that. I just love this particular Chariot card or Mastery card. I quite love that. So I'm going to stop. Thank you, Melissa. I'm actually really, really loving this deck a lot. I think it will definitely be one that I will start to go to when I want that sort of Rider-Waite-Smith traditional feel, but not, I don't tend to read with that deck. So I'm quite excited to pull this out to do some readings with. This is just a look at the Tarot of the Old Path deck. So very much excited to use this, and I will let you all know how I do with it.